Hey guys, how's it going? So we're talking about why we bought our first house instead of renting today. This is actually our second take on the video. First video we had some issues with, and we ended up losing part of it due to some issues with my phone. So we got up to the coffee shop to edit the video, realized there were some issues, so I'm sitting outside the coffee shop remaking the video. But going on from there, when me and my wife were looking at a house, or houses, looking at a house to buy, we were a couple months out from getting married. I think we were looking in February, March, April. In April we got married. So in February she was 18. I was 21 at the time. I had just turned 21. And we were looking for a house instead of renting, mainly because of money. If you rent a house, your money goes to the landlord, to the management company who's managing the properties, and to your utilities, and it's all gone. You don't get any of that money back. And if you buy a house, all you're losing is your interest and your utilities, and basically house necessities. But that principal is going into the house, purchasing the home, and it's creating equity. And that equity, you can sell the home at a later date and get that equity back. So for our financial purposes, we didn't want to just be throwing away that $400 or $500 extra a month. And when you're buying a home, you're kind of setting aside in a savings account. That home is a savings account that matures at a steady rate as the housing market goes up, and as your property around your house goes up, you build equity that way. And actually we had some good rental opportunities come our way as well, where we decided to go with buying. So we looked around at a couple different houses. A couple of them had some major issues, or some issues that were outside of our skill set, and we were really wanting to do most of the work ourselves. My wife, her father was a painter, so she knows a lot of the work associated with that. She's a great painter. Growing up, I helped with some carpenters and things like that. My uncle was a roofer. I helped my dad build some decks and frame some doors and things like that. So we had a lot of basic experience, but we didn't want to do anything that was foundation work or anything crazy. So we had to pass on a few good opportunities just because they needed some work and they were a little overpriced. Eventually we found a house that was a HUD foreclosure. Now HUD homes are a government funded home, and when they are selling those homes, in the contract the buyer has to live in the home for at least a year before they can resell the house without penalties. Now that's why a lot of fix and flip kind of people or real estate investors, they pass on HUD homes because they're not living in the homes. So that was perfect for us. We were planning on being there for at least 2 years. And it fell out perfectly. So we found a HUD home. It was nice, a lot of interior work only. Foundation was okay, the garage was okay, the roof was okay. We put a bid on it for $100,000, and someone else came and outbid us by $30,000. And then, interestingly enough, we bought another house in the same neighborhood. It was a cul-de-sac with like 2 roads cutting the cul-de-sac in thirds, probably 40 to 60 homes. It was a very nice neighborhood, very quiet. A lot of tradespeople lived there, a lot of retirees. A couple of people around us had kids and things like that. It was just a really friendly and nice neighborhood. Everyone kept their houses clean for the most part. Everyone kept their lawns mowed. I was probably the worst one at that in the neighborhood. But we found another home. It was another HUD home, actually. It was a split level. So the second home, we bid $100,000. We won the bid. It was probably worth a little bit less than $100,000, but we knew we could sell it for more than $100,000. And interestingly enough, the first house we bid on, in the 2 years we lived in the neighborhood, there was no work that we could see being done. It just kind of sat there vacant. So we bought this second home, put a little bit of work into it, My wife, made a blog post about that, and I'll link that down in the description. And a lot of the stuff we did was superficial stuff. The biggest things we did was drop ceiling in the basement we had to redo, and we did vinyl flooring throughout the entire house, except the 2 bathrooms and the kitchen and the laundry room. They were tile, ceramic tile. We didn't have to touch that. We also had to put a roof on, and we did a little bit of deck work, a lot of landscaping, made it look very pretty. And the rest was really just painting, redoing some trim, patching some holes in some walls, and things like that. And 2 years later, we sold that house, and that would have been 4 or 5 months ago from now. We sold the house for $146,000, and we made pretty good profit off that. We did have to pay closing costs for our buyers, and we also paid the realtor fees and things like that. But we were able to put a good 20% down on our next house. Now, on our first house, we only put 3% down because we were only planning on being there for 2 years. We had a 30-year mortgage, and our house payment was $700 a month, and that was $700 to $600. In our area, that was a rental house for a smaller size. The house we bought was 3 bedrooms upstairs with a living room, dining room, and then downstairs there was 2 big rooms. One used to be a master bedroom, and then there was like a elongated room along the side of the house that we used as like an entertainment room. We could have really made those both into bedrooms, and would have been a 5-bedroom house. So a rental house for that in our area would be $800-900. So we weren't paying that much. With our second house, we put 20% down, and that gets rid of what is called a PMI, or personal mortgage insurance, or private mortgage insurance. What that is if you put less than 20% down on a down payment on a house, most mortgage companies also want you to pay private mortgage insurance, or PMI, every month. And for us, that was $46 a month, so it wasn't too bad. So really our house payment was $650 something, and then the PMI was another $46, so it raised it to like $700. With our second house, we put 20% down. Our second house was $110,000. So our loan was only, what is that? We put 22 down, so our loan was $88,000. We don't have any PMI on that. On our house payments, around $650 a month. I can't remember, it's $600 a month, and we pay an extra $50, or it's $650 a month. Our last house, we paid $750 a month, just because we were putting an extra $50 aside as principal, and then we were just using that as like a savings account. Add another $50 into the house, so when we sold it, there was a little bit of extra. With the second house, we plan to do the same thing. We're going to live here at least 2 years. We're planning maybe 3 since we have a baby. But when we go to sell it, we're going to take that equity and go to buy another house, or maybe 2 if we have enough equity in it. We like to do maybe an Airbnb or something like that, but that's in the works, so that's down the road. It depends what the next few years look like. If they're like 2020, who knows? We may be lucky just to survive. But yeah, that's how and why we bought our first house. We didn't want to be paying somebody else that money. We wanted a return on that money, an investment, and that was just the best way for us to do that. We had money set aside for a down payment already. We were saving up from younger ages. We did a lot of side jobs. My wife did a lot of babysitting, music lessons, things like that. I did a lot of lawn mowing, landscaping, and then I had a full-time job as well. And we saved as much as we could. So for those of you who are in your teens, save what you can. You really need to spend that money. You really need the newest gadgets and things like that. And for those of you who are renting or things like that, look into buying a house. What is your market in your area? Are you paying crazy amounts for rent when you could buy a house and your monthly payment's going to be lower than that? Look into that, especially if you have some cash set aside for a down payment. Make sure you have enough for like emergency savings as well. Don't drain all your cash. And that's why we bought a house instead of renting. I'll put the link down to the blog in the description. My wife has done a lot of before and after posts about our first house. And stay tuned, we're doing a lot of work on the second house. And if you find a house, not everything needs to be fixed and flipped. Sometimes it's really just new carpet and paint. And those are the best kind of houses because it's the least amount of work for you. So stay tuned, and thank you guys for watching.